what first convinced both of you that the modern church needed to become more trauma informed?
For me, the project started in my head, or the idea of churches becoming more trauma informed started in my head many, many years ago. I was asked to teach a summer course at Phoenix Seminary on trauma. And at that time, Phoenix Seminary had a master's in counseling program. And so I was creating the curriculum and getting the class ready. And I really thought, though, that all of the students would be counseling students. So it was very clinical focused. And when I showed up to the first class, there was 3 or 4 MDiv students. And so I kind of had to regroup and realize I have to keep this clinical. There's a lot of counselors who are there who need to know what trauma is, and working with clients who experience trauma. But I've got these 3 or 4 MDiv students who are going into pastoral ministry of some sort, but they're in the class and they want to know what trauma is. And that's where some of this for me grew, where I realized pastors need to know more about trauma, because there's so many of us that are going to be affected by it, that show up to church, that show up to ministries, that show up and want to heal and want to be fed, but they've got this trauma that's often going to block or get in the way. So fast forward then, I enroll and become a student at Northern Seminary, where Scott is one of my professors, and I decide to write my thesis on trauma, and trying to figure out, it has to be a New Testament focused paper. I cannot write this clinically focused paper in this program. And so I unpacked first the basis of what is trauma, understanding trauma, but then what the New Testament has to offer for people who are dealing with trauma. And the project for us kind of grew out of that thesis, because I had been trying to figure out, why am I going back to school? I'm a licensed counselor. I love my job. I love having clients. I love the work that I do. I wasn't viewing going to seminary and getting a master's in New Testament as a career switch or change. And so at the end of the programs, we're in the airport going to Greece and Turkey for a trip that was part of the program. And I looked at Scott and I'm like, why? Why would a licensed counselor go back to school and get a master's in New Testament? And he said, it's because we're going to write a book together. 2022. Yeah.
That's amazing.